Who would give the eulogy for Warren Ramsey? Would it be Ryan, the firstborn, the third-generation funeral director, Dad's right-hand man, protege, manager of Eastern Huron Ambulance, and single-handedly providing over half of the family's grandchildren? We got a schedule to keep here. Or perhaps Ross, the second-born, the most driven of the four, a doctor, CEO, and largest owner of waterfront property in all of Huron County. Clearly a recipient of Dad's sharp business mind, but his inability to find a paisley funeral suit could be troublesome. Or maybe Sean, the wisest of them all, a doctor too, even focusing on emergency medicine. A gleam of Dad's eye, and an EMT for already 20 years. But I don't think Comcast of Traverse City even offers Dad-beloved channel of Fox News. And then there's Clark, the obvious choice. Heir to Dad's voice, but also his charm, his humor, his good looks, his intelligence, his people skills, and public speaking. The 2003 Our Lady of Lake Huron Geography Bee champion. The 9th best place spelling bee in the state of Michigan, compared to Columbus, and he averaged an impressive 1.8 points in JV basketball. However, his overwhelming humbleness and lack of confidence could be an issue. Or could it be Arlene, the dark horse in this race, whose obsession and love of standing in front of large crowds is downright embarrassing. We're working through this with her, and hopefully by 2029 we'll get her back in her shell just a little bit. But the fact of the matter is, it's not who is giving the eulogy, but what the eulogy stands for. Warren Ramsey was so many things to so many people. He had a way of having a unique relationship with every single person that he interacted with, and in wildly different ways. Maybe you knew him through the funeral home in a time of need. Maybe you knew Dad from being on the football sidelines for over 50 years. Maybe you knew him from the ambulance, Easter cantatas with the community choir. Or for those on Social Security here today, you can remember the New Life Singers. Singing karaoke in Florida, the Rotary Club of Hart Reach, playing taps on Memorial Day, the Hospital Foundation, Med Control Authority, the Marina Committee, Planning Commission, American Legion, AmVets, Church, the Coffee Shop, Thumb Funeral Directors Association, teaching CPR and First Aid, the Fondue Crew, the Cats LB Muskrats, or maybe you just knew him as Mr. Ramsey, Uncle Warren, Grandpa, or simply Dad. It's not hard, well, it's actually very hard, to succinctly put into words what he meant to all of us. And that's just the way he liked it. Not about him, but everyone that benefited from him. He might just happen to steal the show along the way. So I'll do my best to navigate those waters and tell the story of Warren Ramsey over the next 43 minutes. It's okay to laugh. As Dad always said, funerals are for the living, not the dead. Which explains why when Dad came home from the hospital this last week, he told Ryan, "Just put me in the cherry casket. We've had it for too long and it needs to go." Copper casket. Funerals are for the living, not the dead. He also said on multiple occasions that we should be celebrating funerals and mourning weddings, so take it as you will. Dad was so many things to so many people, yet it always came back to the same attributes. Calm, cool, collected, quick-witted, light on his feet, and can command a room when needed. Warren always knew what to say, in the right tone, in the right words, in the right inflection. Not many people could pull off a one-liner at the end of emotional graveside service, but not everyone was like Dad. He had a way with words. If anyone has ever listened to one of my football broadcasts, you'll know that one of our most popular segments is called Dining with Doug. Basically, it consists of Doug Cole going into a local restaurant as the world's most friendly food critic and reports back on air about his food experience. But I did not come up with that name. Dining with Doug was Dad's name. Catchy, to the point, kind of like Dad. And when Doug couldn't make it to the game, it was Dad who came up with the names of Cooking with Kayla, Eating with Ed, and Meals with Mark. So in a sense, not only did I lose my dad, I lost my ghostwriter. He always knew what to say, no matter the situation. When writing the game show, he always had the best rewrites. I'd be so proud of what I had written, spending hours crafting the perfect joke. And then he'd come through with an even better punchline in less words, less time, and less effort. One year, we added him into the game show during a tea time segment. It was a direct steal from an old Johnny Carson bit where we'd introduce an automatic telling grandfather's clock. You'd simply look at the face of the clock, open the door, and Warren Ramsey would be inside the clock to yell, "It's 6:15!" Every year, I would always do a dry run of those tea time segments for Mom and Dad as sort of a test audience. Warren and Arlene would sit at the kitchen table while their youngest son would do a song and dance, trying his best to impress his father. I always knew I found the right balance of humor and wit when Dad would be laughing and Mom would say it's inappropriate. Fast forward a year, and we had new segments written, planned, and mapped out, all with new jokes. So when it was time for rehearsal, I noticed that the grandfather clock was back on the stage. This was not in the script, this was not planned, nor was the grandfather clock even supposed to be at the theater. But Dad decided to take it upon himself to add it into the joke himself without telling anyone, and of course it was the biggest laugh of the night yet again. We ended up doing that joke 3 times, each better than the time before it, and even if the audience knew what was coming. Dad always had that knack of knowing what would work, knowing how to say it, and he never lost his sense of humor right to the very end. He never lost his cool. He rarely was ever upset. Well, that is with the exception of his arch nemesis, the Xerox Phaser 6200 copier. I'm not sure what Tray 5 ever did to him, but Dad could connect on a 50-yard field goal with a booming kick to the upper left corner every single funeral. We always joke that we should have the copier to the left of his casket here in the church so that when everyone walked by, they'd give the copier one last kick in the corner. That, or if you ever sat down to have a meal with his family. After a long day, he would finally sit down to eat likely his first meal of the day. And just like that, the ambulance pager would go off for a call to 606 Shock Road for a medical alarm. This is just stupid, as he threw down his fork and out the door Dad would go to help someone in need. He loved the community. He loved his family. He loved his friends. He loved Las Olas. He loved the sweet treat. And he loved the funeral home. Nothing would have made him more happy than to work his own funeral today. He'd even be more happy that we're on schedule. Except for the fact that there's a son of the dead that's dragging on his eulogy. Growing up in a funeral home, you learn responsibility at a very young age and how to navigate some very uncomfortable situations. We were taught to answer the phone with professionalism. If there was someone at the front door of the funeral home, you listen, don't promise them anything, but if they have money, take it. And give them a receipt. We knew that the moment the phone rang, especially if it was line 1, you shut up. If you said, okay, we'll be there shortly, we knew that our vacation plans were about to change. I can't tell you how many vacations were delayed, cut short, or even canceled, all from one phone call. It was our family's responsibility to be there for them. And we were okay with that. It doesn't mean that Mom would not be in tears after prepping and packing the camper for 7 days, only for it not to happen. But for us boys, I remember looking at each other and saying, why is Mom crying? It's just a camping trip. Not understanding and underestimating how much wrangling and planning it took to keep 4 young boys on the straight and narrow path at all times. 420 Pearl Street was run under a British form of government. Mom served as the Prime Minister, handling the day-to-day operations and truly managed the government, went to war when she had to and did what was best for her citizens. But Dad, he was the king. And there would be no debate. Yes, Your Excellency, as you wish. You can debate in the House of Commons, not with the king. Yes. Not because he wasn't having any of it, but simply because he knew what was right and what was needed, no matter the situation. With Dad's schedule, Mom would get us ready to be out the door at 12 p.m. As the minutes ticked by, as we approached 12 p.m., Mom would say, "Well, I don't know where your father is." And at 11:59 and a half, the back door of the funeral home would swing open. He'd come into the house and say, "Okay, let's go," like nothing ever happened. And the cabin door would close with non-time departure at exactly 12 noon. Now, what we might not have realized is he had 2 ambulance calls in the meantime, someone at the front door of the funeral home, 7 phone calls, and a fight with the Xerox copier. But he was always ready. And he'd show up finishing off a glazed sour cream donut, which he somehow had time to pick up along the way. If Mom told us to jump, we would ask, why? She would explain it, and then we'd realize we had little input in the matter. If Dad said jump, we would jump, and then once in the air, we would ask, how high? If he showed up in the yard wearing his green Land's End jacket, we would hide. That's because we knew that the remainder of the weekend was going to be spent doing spring or fall yard work around the house and funeral home. And thank goodness that is now the responsibility of Landon. But he also made time for the sweeter side of life, and quite literally, sweets. The bottom drawer in his desk was always had a stash of chocolate-covered raisins, Ridge Mix, or cashews. At home, under the sink upstairs, it was always filled with what Henley coined grandpa food. Caramel-filled and peanut M&Ms, chocolate-covered cherries, and all the dressings. And of course, yes, donuts. Every Saturday morning, growing up, we would do a donut run, which would go as follows. Dad would load up the car with all 4 boys to head to the snack shack, where we'd pick out each of our own donut. For me personally, a frosted chocolate chip top fried donut. For Sean, a twisted glaze. Ross, sour cream glazed, and Ryan, custard filled. We would then leave there and head to the post office, ambulance garage, maybe the bank, and then cruise the beach out to the marina. And just about as we reached the boat launch at the marina, the ambulance pager would go off, and that 1991 Chrysler Imperial would take off on 2 wheels with 4 boys in tow. When we get to the ambulance garage, we would learn of a simple 2-word command: walk home. So, thank you to the folks living between Huron Avenue, Garden Street, 3rd Street, and Pearl for keeping an eye on those 4 unchaperoned young boys as they traversed the neighborhoods while leaving a trail of chocolate chips behind. He trusted us and knew that we were being raised right to make our own decisions, which I always thought was strange because it didn't really add up, because he would always walk us to school to make sure we got across the main road. And this continued all the way through 7th and even 8th grade for me. It took me a few years to finally realize that he just wanted to go to Pumpkin Party for a morning coffee and donut. He was always there for his sons, his wife, his community, and he made sure everyone was having a good time doing it too. His zeal for life could be heard on any parade route with cattail bay muskrats. Dad has played the trumpet and been the lead singer since 1973. If you look closely at the band's wooden signs, it says, "The official band of the Harbor Beach Centennial," which took place in the early 80s, and growing up we thought that was a pretty big deal and a huge honor. But Dad, being Dad, realized that they were the only band for the Harbor Beach Centennial. So we had it painted on their signs. He told me just a few years ago, grinning, what were they going to do, kick us out? Dad always had a one-liner, whether it was a groaner or not. One of his favorite phrases was when someone would ask about ghosts, haunted buildings, or general eeriness of the funeral business, he'd always say, "It's not the dead ones you need to worry about." And yet again, he was right. He was the ultimate father, the ultimate husband of 50 years, and the ultimate pillar for the community. Someone you could always count on. And now it's all our turn to continue that legacy. He could have complained about how the odds were stacked against him for the last 6 years. First with esophageal cancer, then later leukemia, and then again in the past few months, esophageal yet again. Or the fact that he legally couldn't see for the last 20 years. Instead, Dad took it head on with grace. Calm, cool, and collected, as always. Besides, he knew that Mom would worry enough for the both of them, and then some. Many people have asked us in the last week how we are doing. And when you grow up in a funeral home, it's a complicated answer. We still feel grief. We'll be going through those stages over the next days, weeks, months, and years. Grief cuts a hole into you, and it never heals. Losing someone like Dad lingers with you the rest of your life, as it should. And instead, we fill that emptiness with love, laughter, and memories. Dad taught us to live every day to the fullest, because as he always said, you never know when you just might wake up dead. Live without regret, die with no fear, walk in faith. Everyone and everything else falls in place. We know he's still here with us, guiding us with every step. He's now just above us, and as always, one step ahead. Thank you.